All right, everybody. Ben Harris back with another episode of the Delegation Roundtable. And I've got a close buddy on today who's insanely busy. And I know his time is extremely valuable. And I don't intend on wasting it. Hopefully we can make him laugh and get some good stories out of him. But somebody who is a brilliant businessman, even a better human. He's a philanthropist, angel investor, entrepreneur, founder, and co-founder of the Nucleus Network. And someone who needs to be on his soapbox and walks into a room and there's not anyone that does not know who this person is. So I'm honored to bring him to our Sphere Rocket community. But I wanted to welcome Jake Fleshner to the show. Jake, thanks so much for sitting down. I know you're super busy right now. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me too. I know you're super busy also, and I'm so excited to be on the show. We got a big Jaguars fan I'm talking to, so we'll definitely talk football on the show too. And thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course, did we just hijack this and start talking about sports completely? Yeah. But no, I'd love to spend the first half or so unpacking your story and how you've learned so much and built such a big network. And then I'd love to dive into Nucleus and what that is and then what's happening with it. But you and I met back, we were young pups. Really doing a lot of stuff with David Meltzer. But for you, after you graduated college, you were in, I guess, the Southern California area, correct?
Yep. Los Angeles, but I was traveling back and forth to Orange County. Yep.
Okay. And, what got you into, I guess, initially, can I call it the entertainment industry? What's a better way to word it?
I would say more the personal development space mixed with content.
Awesome. Yeah. So what got you involved in that? Tell us about all that.
Yeah, that's a loaded question, but I'm happy to answer it.
Yeah.
To give you a little bit more background, which probably will help the audience, I was born and raised in LA. Ben thinks I live in New York because I'm in New York all the time. So I'm kind of back. My co-founder lives out there. But after graduating, I went to the University of Michigan. I go blue. I started a company while I was there called Space Trade when I was a junior in college. And it went really well. We were working with 42 businesses in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And it actually got quasi-acquired by the business school. So I had a very early start in entrepreneurship. And what really got me into it was Gary Vee. I know, Ben, and follow Gary Vee also. And that was like my OG way to understand entrepreneurship. And Gary used to always say, and still does, people day trade attention. And that always got me thinking, like, who can I be around that kind of envisions and embodies the day trading attention atmosphere and mindset? So I went out on a mission when I was now a senior in college. And I got the offers to work at Goldman and all these places. And I decided I just want to go find someone that I want to be like and just find a way to work for him. So I was at South by Southwest my senior year of college. And I saw this smaller, he's okay that I say that, this smaller gentleman walk in with two big NFL players going back to sports. And he was on a panel talking about the importance of content and the importance of building a brand so that you can be set up for after you're an athlete, after you're a professional athlete. And I was inspired. So I walked up to him after his speech and I said, his name is David Meltzer, who we'll talk about. And I said, hey, I know this is super out of left field, but I'll do whatever it takes to work for you. I'm a senior in Michigan. Let me know. I don't need money. I don't need anything. I just want to learn from you. So a week later, he said, fly out to New Jersey. I was actually still in school at the time. I took off school. So that's a good lesson. If there's a lifetime opportunity, you just got to go for it. School will be there. You're not learning so much in the classroom. You actually have to learn hands-on and experience. So I went to New Jersey. I got to know him a little bit, and he offered me a very, very modest job coming out of school where I got to learn a lot. And I said, I'm in. I didn't even ask any questions. I said, I'm in. Let me know where it is. So I moved back to LA after Michigan. He lived in Orange County. I went back and forth. So I was driving an hour and a half both ways every single day for 5 years. That's what I was doing for 4.5 years. I became the chief revenue officer by the time I left. I was overseeing a team of about 8, and it was an amazing opportunity. I got to work with Ben and everything that you were doing over there. And what really got me into it was, like I said, I think that the world moves on attention. And if you can back someone and actually provide value to people at a mass scale, you'll do really well. So I got to learn a lot. I got to meet very influential people, and that's what's led me to who I am today.
That's incredible. From, you mentioned, humble beginnings, job offer, willing to do whatever it takes, up to chief revenue officer in a short span. What was the main, which I'm sure there's plenty, so we could spend a whole other episode on this. What were the main sources of revenue for Dave's company? when you were in charge of that?
Yeah, when I first got there, it's interesting when you have a lot of people following you. I think a lot of people now are trying to figure out what they can offer to their audience. Some people go the which is right up your alley. Some people go like the funnel route. Some people go the coaching route where you're teaching courses. Some people go the keynote speaking route, and some people go, like the sponsors route, getting sponsors to sponsor your videos. And some do like one-on-one coaching. When I came into Dave's company, it was mostly one-on-one coaching. And I saw a lot of opportunity, and I think our whole team did. So we kind of positioned that and flipped that in a new way, where we started actually doing TV shows, where we bring in very influential people who Dave was friends with, and we would let them come on the show. Think about the greats, Marshall Faulk, Marshawn Lynch, Jordan Belfort, like all these types of people, Russell Brunson. And we would bring them on the stage, and we're all about stage theory. You could post, stage theory is actually very important. Let's say a lot of people now are saying that billboards aren't that important, but if you can put up a billboard and take a picture of it, the world is your stage, and you post a picture and put that online, hundreds of thousands of people will see it, not just the people driving by. So we get all these influential people, and then we get other people who are business owners to chat with them. So it was an interesting way for us to kind of utilize our relationships to bring different types of people in. So that was one way. The second way was, of course, one-on-one coaching and group coaching. The third was Dave was a very prominent keynote speaker, one of the best speakers that I've ever seen. Part of my role actually working with Dave was to get him speaking engagements throughout the world. So we went to many, many countries, many, many cities to put him on the stage. And that was mostly how we monetized while I was working with Dave.
That's awesome. And I think this are down memory lane. When Dave gave a keynote at Boise Entrepreneurship Week, we got to have dinner one night when he was there. It was super cool.
I remember. I missed that trip, but I heard it was great.
Yeah, we had a blast. Which I'm obviously now in Texas, but a little slice of paradise out there in Idaho. But if you have a really cool moment, or you did have a very cool moment, and I want to get into you being a founder and realizing you have to delegate to elevate. I hate that saying, but it is true. But you had a moment with Dave to where either you told him or he told you, but you both were thinking the same thing of that's the right route for you to go. When you did feel like you kind of hit a glass ceiling, but wanted to keep going, right? Wanted to keep learning, growing, innovating. And what was that realization like for you?
Yeah. And it sounds like, and I know that you were in a similar position. I think at a certain point when, like you said, when you hit a ceiling, I think that you need to kind of think of the future. And I think people who really care about you want you to go out on your own. So I got to learn, and I got to meet some unbelievable people that I'm still close with by doing what I was doing. I got to learn lessons that I want to do, and also lessons that I don't want to take over to my next role and whatever I did next, now obviously running a company. And when I realized it was time for me to go. So it wasn't an easy thing to do. I think there's a lot of people that are like the people behind the people, and that's actually an interesting brand, the people behind the people. But I think those people have to train the next people behind the people. They shouldn't just leave. They should try to teach the next generation of who's going to be helping the people, so that they can go out and you're not big of a burden when you leave. So I think it's really important, and not enough people do that. But it was super important. I really put in a lot of effort to make sure that there was someone carrying the torch when I left.
Yeah, and shout out to Dave too for one, realizing the potential in you, and supporting you on that as well. For a lot of people, as a business owner, as a leader in general, I think that it's almost our job to help people become the best version of themselves, not necessarily the best version that helps you personally. And I've been on both ends of that throughout my career over the years, being an old fart now. But tell me about, as you wanted to, cross the chasm, as you wanted to go into that journey, you could have done anything you want, right? Like literally, you probably could have done anything and built an empire out of it. You chose to go down something that I would say is rather unique, right? You kind of have carved out, your own blue ocean, where I don't feel, again, I could be oblivious to it. I don't feel like there's many competitors. I don't feel like many people have attempted it, but you're kind of pioneering the entire concept. Tell us about what the Nucleus Network is and what made you want to do something like that.
Yeah, great question. Great way to position it. It's really how we actually met. We met through a warm intro. So
True.
Warm introductions make the world go round. I think a lot of people meet people that they fall in love with, that they do business with, that they end up working with closely because of warm intros. Like, trust is the most important thing in business. And trust comes from getting to know someone, but then also them looking out for you and vouching for you. And I think a lot of people vouch for you behind closed doors, but they're not actually introducing you to the people that they talk about you with. So why we came out and why we built this mission is my co-founder and I, which is actually my best friend, Michael. Shout out to Axe. We got to get him on the show next time.
He's the man. Yeah.
He is the man. I remember that cold plunge we did in New York, by the way. That was about 2 years ago.
It was uncomfortable for what it was. Yeah.
You did a great job, by the way. Ben knows how to cold plunge. I'm putting this out there for everyone that's on the show and listening. So how we developed the business, which I think will help, is my Axe and I, he goes by Axe. What we've always been known for in our friend groups is the people that are like the center, the glue. So we were like, when we started the company, this was about 3.5 years ago, we came up with the concept. We said, hey, let's go to our friends. Whenever they ask us for something that they need, which is very frequently, at least daily, once a day, literally we would say, hey guys, originally we were just like, I don't have time for this because I have a job. But now the job is to solve your challenges through warm intros. Let's just go out and do it. So that's exactly what we did. We went on this mission about 2.5 years ago. We started out by making over 2,000 warm intros in the first 3 months. So you can imagine that. We literally would text all the people that would text us and say, hey, just started a new company called the Nucleus Network. What do you need? Hey, Jake, I need a girlfriend. Hey, Jake, I need a graphic designer. Hey, Jake, I need a good funnel builder. Amazing. We go to our other side. Hey, do you know how to do this? To our other friends. That's how it's evolved into 2,000 warm intros in 3 months. And to go out on a mission like this is not easy. There's not, like you said, there's not many people that are out on this mission that are actually doing this full time. There's a lot of people doing it on the side. The ones who do it full time are trying to build a platform behind it. What Axe and I got into when we started was we want to do this as manual as possible so that we don't take the person out of making warm intros. So
scalable.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, the stuff we do probably isn't scalable. We're still trying to figure that out. But to us, we're actually helping a lot of people. So fast forward, we now have made over 10,000 warm intros. We've tracked every introduction that we've ever made, and it's evolved into unbelievable things. I think Axe will say the same thing. The best text that we get is, hey, I'm going on vacation with someone you introduced me to 4 months ago. Or, hey, this person and I are business partners now. It's really amazing to see. And cold outbound and paid ads don't get you there the same way.
Never. I think it's the coolest thing in the world when you can curate, whether it's an experience, an event, anything, to where two people that you know that don't know each other at all, right? And they somehow connect and meet each other because it's something that you did, and then they're best friends. And you're just like, I don't know, it's my inner ego, but it's like, I did that. That's cool. Like, and that enhances their experience in many different capacities.
And I think you're really good at this too, Ben. When you introduce someone, like, if A needs B, you're not just going to connect them to each other, right? You're going to figure out if they're going to get along first, and then you're going to cater an introduction that makes sense for both of them. So you're a Jaguars fan. Let's say you come to me and say, hey, I need a graphic designer. I'm going to go to the person, if they're a Cowboys fan, and be like, hey, Ben and Nick, you guys should meet. Ben is a Jaguars fan, so take it easy on him. Like, something like that, where I think is really important, because first interactions are everything. And then obviously interactions are important too, but we're really trying to figure out the science and about actually making these intros.
So what type of, I feel like we just talked about, we started a company of 10,000 intros later. That is not a small feat. What would you say has been, I don't say learning experience, but that's how I would identify it if I were you. But what's the biggest pitfall that you had to be like, oh, we didn't foresee this coming. Now we have to pivot in this direction, because I feel like a lot happened between 0 and 10,000 intros. It's been years now too.
Yeah.
I want to unpack that with you.
Yeah, a lot to unpack. It's never a straight road. It's definitely been a roller coaster, but a fun roller coaster. I think if you really believe in what you're building, it's all fun and games, right? So there's going to be a lot of up, and then it's going to go down, and then you have to find a way to kind of keep going up. To us, the biggest pitfalls is it's actually around follow-ups. To us, what we always say to people is an introduction only goes as far, or a potential business contact, of the follow-up. So of the intros that we were making, we didn't have a good strategy in line. At first, when we had 100 intros, we can just go to all of our friends and say, hey, how'd the intro go? After 5,000 intros, it's like, how do we actually track what everyone's doing? And we always tell people we follow up at least once a week. Great. How do you follow up with 10,000 people a week? Amazing question. We now have, thanks to our friends at ClickUp, shout out ClickUp and Chris Cunningham, who's actually a board advisor of ours now.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
brilliant. Yeah.
We'll be with him at Cannes Lions next week. He and his team have put together an unbelievable way for us to actually track the introductions that we've made and help with the follow-up. So you can only go as far as the strategy that you have, but more importantly, the platforms that you're using to actually track everything that you're building. And I know that you're huge on that. So that was really important to our backbone of what we built. The second thing is being able to say yes to everybody. We were saying yes to everything when we first started. Hey, you're a plumbing company in Dallas. Can you help us? Yes, let's find a way to do it, which is what we did. Our first client, which is what Axe and I always talk about. We are now a fully warm intro company, but it's actually an amazing company called Zamana. It's two 70-year-old plus founders that started a janitorial company that helps people with like AI for janitors. Very interesting business. And they came to us and say, hey guys, we need help with cold outbound. That's completely not what we do. We started, they were our first ever monthly advisory client. And ever since, it's like everything changes, you have to pivot, and eventually you really figure out who you are.
That's wild. So are they still a client of yours today?
They're not. We worked with them for about 6 months, and then we realized we don't do cold outbound. This isn't what we specialize in, but we help them. We definitely were able to provide more than what they gave us.
That's awesome. And even a lot of people have asked me, like, would you ever want to start your own company? Like, I definitely would. Nothing's hit me. Like, I don't know what I would do. And my friend Perry, shout out Perry Belcher, was like, that's the whole idea, dude. He's like, you don't know. You just do it, and then you eventually just kind of figure it out, what you do and don't, what meshes. I want to talk about how you guys on this 0 to 10,000 intro path grew. So you mentioned you don't run ads, I don't think, right?
No ads, yeah.
No ads. You do warm introductions. As a result, did that compound to a lot of inbound leads of people who need your help, from local to giant enterprise brands? How do you handle that type of inbound request that I'm now sure you have to this day?
Great question. And it's taken time. It's taken time to really figure out who we can help. And how we've solved that is by trying with a lot of different companies. And originally when we started the company, it really was all going to be about warm intros. We set up a referral agreement. We take a percentage on deals closed. We'd go to events and be like, what do you do? What do you do? Like a 1-sentence pitch. We make warm intros. What does that mean? Of course, that gets people intrigued. And I still say that to some people. But the next iteration of that is, okay, who do you make warm intros for? Great. Let us explain what we do. So about a year and a half ago, we came together with Axe, myself, and our head of operations. We said, hey, by the end of this week, we need pillars of our business. Pillars are so important to keep you grounded and understand where you're going. So you need pillars and you need a model of your business. So the pillars we came up with were ventures, advisory, and community. You're probably asking, how does ventures come to play? Great question. From a venture perspective, what do most people need? Capital. They need capital for their business. They need capital for funding their employees, whatever it looks like. So we said, originally, people who needed capital, we would introduce them to our friends who invest, angel investors, family offices, VCs. But then we said, wait a minute, we're seeing unbelievable companies here. Why don't we invest ourselves? So that's what we came to be. So about 22 months ago, we made our first investment under Nucleus. It was in a company called Going Public. Shout out Going Public. They're doing really well, Darren and Todd. And we said, rather than us putting all of our personal money in, let's do that, but also get our friends to invest alongside of us, because everyone's asking us what we do. So that's exactly what we did. We set up a syndicate. We now have 450 LPs in our syndicate that invest alongside of us. We've invested into 28 companies in the last 22 months. We've allocated $52 million in very big companies, but also early stage companies. And our value prop to them is warm intros. I think a lot of people just invest and say, hey, good luck with my money. We say, hey, let us invest. Even before that, let us help you with warm intros first. Let us see how you do with those, and then we invest. You can text us anytime for warm intros you need. So we've helped a lot of our portfolio companies. Our advisory business is we advise for companies through warm intros. That's our monthly retainer model. We are working with a couple publicly traded companies, so big level companies, mostly service providers. That's who we tend to work best with, and also actually investors that are looking for more deal flow. And then on the last side, it's our event business. Last year we did 55 events. This year on pace to do close to 70. So to answer your question, how it's evolved, it can't just be a warm introduction business. There's a lot more that people need just from warm intros.
Which that got you in that route, right? Giving warm introductions opened up all of this. Kind of an interesting question that I would find myself in, because I think looking back, I don't even know how to say this. I think like dealing with people maybe have always been something I've been naturally good at, maybe not an expert in, but just when I graduated high school, my grandpa bought me How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I remember thinking, like, dude, I graduated with a 2.3 GPA. I suck at everything. If there's one thing I'm good at, it's making friends. Like, I'm not going to read this thing. And I opened the flap, and I forget what it is. Like, on that very first page, it says, like, written for the man who doesn't need it. And I'm egotistically like, all right, well, now I have to read this. And it, changed my life for the better. But when I was younger in my career, I think I, again, had like an ego trip around teaching everything I know, because I didn't want someone to end up better than me, right? Of like, oh, if I share all this stuff, what am I going to do, right? If they start doing everything better than me, then I'm SOL, up the creek with no paddle. But I've now realized that's like the dumbest mindset you could ever have. And now it's all I do. I teach everything I know. It's not much, but I love sharing, everything that I have. And for me, it's allowed, whether it's freeing up my mental capacity, space, and it's like really delegating, right? And I think you obtained that same skill set at a much higher level. Have you had similar thoughts in that realm, or how have you tried to really replicate yourself within your company? Because it's too much for one person to do, right? That's kind of what we have the delegation roundtable here. I want to talk to you about that.
I love the roundtable. I want to flip it on you quickly before I answer that. What was the biggest lesson you learned from How to Win Friends and Influence People? It's one of my favorite books there.
God, the first thing came to my mind is probably not the best, but it's just the sound of someone's name is the sweetest sound in the world.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's what that's my biggest lesson too. Yeah.
Yeah. Of just allows you to build rapport at a quicker level, especially if you meet someone just now. Oh, Jake, meet my friend Ryan. When I just met Ryan, he's like, oh, it makes them feel important. And I would say, I think I've just always had the natural ability. I just remember things about people because I care. I think like I truly, truly do. Even still, we went to a football game like 5 years ago. I don't even know if you remember. I still in touch with Xander, like people that I met in that at that game. And I remember everything about his coaching business, how he, he moved out of the country. He was in San Diego. Like I didn't write that down anywhere. It's just, it's an ability, but I kind of hijacked your question. Sorry.
No, I was asking you. That's a great answer. And that's the one lesson I learned too. So always say people's names.
Yeah.
The delegation roundtable, we're at the roundtable right now.
Yeah.
I think the smartest people know how to delegate. I think people who always want to win and everything has to be in their name, they don't end up that far. Like maybe in the short term they do, but in order for you to win, you have to create leaders around you that can understand the knowledge that you have, that you think they should know, and be able to teach it to others. I was just with someone who, the IPO just happened last week, someone who works there. I was with him this weekend. We all know who it is, and the company who it is. And what he was saying about the organization that's so important and what they do is, it doesn't matter how high you are on the totem pole at the organization. We don't want you to go to like the lower level to talk about your ideas. We want you to go straight to the top so that we don't need to waste our time going step by step by step. And I think the most successful organizations are doing that. If you have the utmost trust in the people that you're bringing on to go and bring ideas, you can say no still. But if they feel comfortable to go to the top, you will save so much time and effort thinking about the idea versus going up the ladder versus just going straight to the decision maker. So I think when it comes to decision making and delegation, make everyone a decision maker. Give everyone autonomy and responsibility that they can come up with their own ideas and their own thoughts so that they feel as inclined to the business as you are. So we like to do that at our company. I think for us, while working with Dave, I had over 100 interns work for us over the 5 years I was there. Some people were 40 years old. Some people were 21 or 18 in college. Everyone did the same thing. Everyone started the same way. At the end of the day, the people who we rewarded the most were the effective communicators that voiced their ideas, voiced their concerns, voiced who they wanted to be and where they wanted to go. Because if you don't say what you want, you'll never get there. So that's what I've learned, and we've brought the same exact mentality into Nucleus.
I love that. It's I think it's from Dan Martell. I didn't invent it, but it's called, which I do this every day, but it's called the definition of done, which everyone across our entire department is very clear on what that is. And then there are bullets and pointers, but really how you get there is up to you, right? I want to give each team member that autonomy and the ability for them to create and get to that result, right? That's how success is measured, that definition of done. And then if you don't get there, that's where the coachable moment happens. Okay, well, let's unpack whatever process you went within this project. What steps did you take? Okay, that's where you went wrong versus like the micromanaging approach. But
how do they define their goals? Do you help them or do you let them decide?
We actually decide. We decide that for them. And then it's like, this is how success is measured. This is what the win looks like. How you get there is up to you, right? But this is what we don't really believe, and this is a sphere rocket thing. We don't believe in expectations. We believe in agreements, right? Like my wife, maybe she expects me to be home at who knows what time, right? But if we agreed I'll be home on a certain time, that's an agreement, right? So there's no resentment is in place because someone's expectations fell short when it maybe wasn't even communicated with in the first place. So that's we're big on that, and just the ability to maybe have those uncomfortable conversations. But I definitely want to keep this on the train of Nucleus. So how big is your team right now?
We are 7 right now.
And even with hiring and delegating, when it was just you and Axe, and you guys started, what process did you put in place to find out what roles to hire first? It's such a unique business model.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think everyone wants to clone themselves when they start a business. Exactly who you are, that's who you're looking for. And especially if you have a co-founder that's similar to you, you want to just continue to get those types of people. To us, what we realized is, like you said, we can't be everywhere. Axe and I can't be everywhere. And we also need to be very organized. So we needed someone who was like a chief operation organization person. Then we also someone who was young and hungry, because that's who I was when I was working with Dave in my previous role, and that's who Axe was, to be able to fly over the world, to be able to fly all over the country, and to basically be our person. So now we have a head of growth, Danny, who's been with us for close to a year now. We always say he is the best role in the country. He gets to go to the Super Bowl, the Masters, all the big cool events. Yeah. And he gets the best tables, and he gets to just mingle and talk to our clients and our friends. So that was one thing. The second is everyone needs an amazing executive assistant. I think now you can do that abroad, or you can do that with AI. One of the biggest things we've done recently is we actually started to look into executive assistants that were AI, and we finally found one that we loved. It's called BlockIt. And Sequoia backed. They basically help you with all of your calendar. It knows who you are. It knows what you do. And we started using it a month ago, and it's been unbelievable. It saved us so much time. And they obviously are working 24/7. So I would always be looking for the right platforms. But to us, those were our 2 biggest things.
That's very cool. And as you guys have clients in so many different directions, and no like specific names, obviously, but give me an example of a warm introduction or a client request from like a big publicly traded company. Like what do they need? I'm curious.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Yeah, big publicly traded companies, I think, are starting to realize that people buy from people, not from brands. And a lot of these big companies aren't developing their leaders to be personal brands. They're just developing them to be the CMO of X, X, and X. So we've gotten many of interesting requests that say, hey, we have this leader, executive, going to events. Can you get them into parties? And can you also like warmly introduce them to people that they want to meet? The beauty of those intros is, I say the CMO of a $20 billion company is coming to an event. Do you want to meet them? The answer for the event host or the people that are there is always yes. But I think on their end, they don't have the confidence, or they don't have the ability, or they just can't, like corporately, to reach out. So they use people like us to actually put them in the right room with the right people. So we get a lot of those, surprisingly. That's
super cool. Can you give me an example of a scenario of that? Like what, or again, nothing specific, but like a type of event that you place with a specific company, don't say any names.
Yeah. a company actually that was smaller, but we connected them to a bigger company. We connected Good Girl Snacks, Hot Girl Pickles, one of our portfolio company, the viral pickle company, unbelievable, one of my favorite portfolio companies.
Yeah.
Introduced them to someone who's an LP of ours who works at a very large retail grocery chain. That it's actually interesting. Like some of these intros, they want to meet each other anyway, but they just like people are scared to reach out for some reason. So he said, "Hey X, do you want to meet Y?" And both of them were like, "This is exactly who we wanted to talk to." So those types of intros always result in wins. But being known as the people behind the scenes that made the intro, doesn't matter if there's a monetary gain, it's always value add, and it's always like in your head that you did that. And it's always important just to do those types of things.
And that's a massive win, 100%. So you tell us, God, paint a picture for me. In 5 years, where is Nucleus? What are you guys going to be up to?
Yeah, by the time it's all done, I don't know if it's going to be in 5 years. We want to make at least 1 million warm intros, at least. And I think we definitely will be able to do that. We want to keep investing in amazing founders. I think our venture business is the fastest growing that we have. And not just us investing. We want our friends to invest in deals that they like. Because some people don't understand that they can even invest in companies that they think are private and are private. But now it's much easier to get into companies than it was 10 years ago, into some of these companies that they love. So we want to be able to.
That's a good point. How so? That's a good point.
Yeah. Originally, if you wanted, I mean, we could talk about late stage secondaries to start. Think about like a Anthropic, for example. Anthropic previously, actually, let's do another company because that's a little bit more difficult. Let's say a Series A company that's private. Let's say your favorite restaurant chain, which actually just happened recently. I recently became an investor in Wake and Late, which is the best breakfast burrito in the world, but it's in LA mostly. They're moving to New York. And I met the founder, amazing guy, came to one of our dinners. I've known him actually for a couple of years. And he said, "My round is open. Do you want to invest?" I said, "Yes, no questions asked. I'm in." I put it on LinkedIn. I also told some of my friends, and I said, "Dude, I go there every single day or every week. Can I invest too?" And I said, "Yes, you can." They said, "How? You're allowed to do that?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So now I've introduced that founder to a bunch of my friends who are now investors. So when they try that burrito, they're actually an equity shareholder in the burrito that they can actually bring to life and actually share with more people. So historically, I think a lot of just VCs would take up all these rounds, but a lot of founders are getting smart and they realize that they just want some common folk in some capacity that aren't investors to get in and to be involved in what they're doing. So we've noticed a big need for that. That's on the venture side. We want to keep hosting events. We want to do about 4 events a month. So about 60 a year is what we are on pace to do, 50 a year. And on the advisory side, we want to just keep advising for companies through our intros that we can help. So over time, that's how we continue to develop. And of course, our team's going to extend. We're always looking to hire amazing people. And that's kind of what the goal is.
That's incredible. I said a few more wrapping up questions for you, but one now just because I'm curious, and the guy with the mic. You mentioned events you guys do. You host a lot of dinners, different like sporting tournaments and things like that. Tell our viewers what type of events you guys do.
Yeah, we like to be different. We don't like to do happy hours because that's what everyone else does. We like to do events where people actually want to go to. So we do paddle tournaments, we do tennis tournaments, we do sauna and ice baths at Othership, which is one of our investment companies too. We're doing our biggest event we've ever done actually this summer called the Nucleus. It's going to be in the Hamptons. We rented a unbelievable house in the Hamptons with Ben. I'm going to invite you to. I hope you can make it. And we'll have 250 of our closest friends and family. All of our portfolio companies are coming. There's going to be like a pickle margarita station. There'll be like a peanut butter station. All the companies that we believe in are going to be there. And yeah, so we also do dinners. We like smaller dinners. We like 15 to 20 person intimate dinners because a lot of companies now come to us and they say, "Hey, we want IRL. We want to take some of our money from paid ads and put it into IRL events, but we don't want huge conferences." Perfect. We'll do a 15-person dinner and get your ICP in the room. So yeah, that's kind of what we do.
And anyone watching who's looking to build up your network, it couldn't be a better idea to do something like that. And maybe even a smaller subset of what you guys do, a smaller example is it's a big software company, Go High Level, that's located here in Dallas. And they had their big annual event here last October, maybe. And speakers I knew that were speaking at the event, anyone I knew that was in Dallas, I just looked up Facebook friends in Dallas. And we ended up hosting just a dinner at the steakhouse that the event was at. Had probably 15 people. was one of the higher ROI things we did in the last 12 months. A higher ROI than Facebook ads we currently have running right now. So it's been a huge move. We look forward to, taking more pages out of that playbook in the near future.
Game changer, smart. You gotta for events like that, you just gotta host it where the event is, like you said, and then the follow-up's much easier. People put your face to the name of the company, and it's much easier. We've seen a much higher successful intro rate from warm intros and events, so it's definitely worked, and I'm excited. Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course. Even fun fact, who was at that dinner was Lyle from Fanbases, who I met through you. Who we now process some stuff with. So yeah, it's been super fun. For those that are still with us, listening, watching, how can they learn more about you and what you have going on? Where do we send them?
Yeah, you can go to my email. You can email me, jake@thenucleusnetwork.com. LinkedIn, X, our website is thenucleusnetwork.com, and we'd love to chat. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much for coming on.
You got it. Thanks, brother.